but I'd like to do something a little different right now for a moment, and that is invite Kendra Olbrich, a nuclear expert from the Friends of the Earth organization, for about 5 minutes. And then I want the panelists to be thinking about either things we want to add or questions we may have of each other, etc. And then right around 11:30ish or so, 11:35, we'll open it up to members of the audience. I know in particular there's a lot of press here that have questions. So please let's welcome Kendra Olbrich, our nuclear expert from Friends of the Earth.
Thank you for that introduction, Mayor, and distinguished members of the panel. It is an absolute honor to be here. Prime Minister Khan, our deepest appreciation for your coming to Southern California, sharing these experiences with community members that are directly impacted by their own nuclear threat. On a personal note, I just want to say that for my colleague Sean Burney, who spent 20 years fighting nuclear energy in Japan, he is deeply honored, and Friends of the Earth is deeply honored to have you here, so thank you. I just want to say a few words about the current situation at San Onofre, and I will be up here afterwards to answer any questions about what's going on currently with these reactors. As my colleague Arnie Gundersen pointed out, this is a nuclear experiment with Southern California. We are talking about radically redesigned critical equipment in the San Onofre reactors that is defective and failed a year and less than 2 years respectively after being installed. Southern California Edison installed this equipment without going through the proper licensing process that would have likely caught these critical design defects that unnecessarily placed the lives and livelihoods of 8.7 million people living within 50 miles of San Onofre at unnecessary risk. Friends of the Earth has been challenging the NRC to hold them accountable and to hold Southern California Edison accountable to ensuring safety now, to go back and do the right thing. Last year in June, almost this time, we brought a contention to the NRC that argued not only did Southern California Edison need license amendments for restart or for the replacement steam generators, but they also needed to go through this process in order to be able to restart either reactor. At that time, we didn't know the extent of the damage. We weren't aware. We knew that there were major design changes. We knew that there were critical problems. We knew that there was a radiation release and unprecedented tube damage. I know that steam generator tubes are a little bit in the weeds for a lot of people and not the most exciting subject, as are license amendments. However, it's so important to understand that these pieces of equipment and the steam generator tubes provide a critical radiation barrier to protect the public. And if there is more than one tube failure, as Arnie said, this could provide or release a large amount of radiation into the environment. Again, placing the public at unnecessary risk. So this is a very critical issue for the safety of Southern California Edison, or the safety of Southern California. That too, yeah. And Edison. So we've been working very, very hard to ensure that these reactors are kept offline. We've been very successful in that. And recently, we won a stunning victory before the Atomic Safety and Licensing Board. This was the NRC's own board that the NRC commissioners voted unanimously to institute, to consider the contentions that Friends of the Earth had brought, that the process by which Edison is going through to restart these reactors is in fact a de facto license amendment process. What that means is that they would have allowed the restart outside of the scope of the operating license without allowing the public the opportunity for thorough, independent vetting by independent experts like Arnie Gundersen, like John Large, who is one of our nuclear consultants as well. And that is critical for ensuring safety, and we're seeing that today. Again, because Edison avoided this process before, critical design problems were not caught. and we absolutely cannot allow that to happen again. What the Atomic Safety and Licensing Board said very clearly after evaluating the merits, the actual facts, was that this restart proposal is an experiment, that the problems in Unit 2 and Unit 3 are the same, and that a hearing should take place before any restart is allowed. I want to reiterate again, that was a stunning victory, not just for Friends of the Earth, but for everybody living near these reactors and near this nuclear threat. Southern California Edison wants to restart these without having an empirical database on which to base it. So what they're proposing is a theory. They have a hypothesis that they can control the tube degradation, and they want to restart it for a trial run, shut it down, and see what happened. That is the definition of an experiment, when you test a hypothesis and then take a look and see what happens. We are saying that we absolutely will not allow Southern California Edison to turn Southern California into a nuclear experiment. Woo! Yeah. So incredibly powerful today, as Mr. Khan was speaking, was the impact that such a technology can have on a society. Here in Southern California, it's not just the people that are living near these reactors, millions of people, two of the largest cities in the country, and certainly in the state, that are jeopardized by this. But we also have the Port of Los Angeles. The economic impact, if something were to happen to the port, could be catastrophic, not just for California, but for the entire country. So with that, I want to thank all of you for coming today. Again, thank you so much to everybody on this panel, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about the current situation.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandra. What I'd like to do now is please remain here on the panel with us. Let's just go into a little bit of a discussion. In particular, our Prime Minister, Khan, if there's anything you would like to add after all that you have heard, anything you'd like to comment, and any other panelists, if you would like to add any comment or have a little bit of discussion, please do so. And then in about 20-30 minutes or so, we'll take questions from the audience. So if we may start with you, Mr. Prime Minister, if you have any comment, please.
3.11 の事故の後、我が国でも我が国では27基の原発が動いてましたが、それが定期点検で止まった後の再稼働について大きな議論がありました。
After 3.11, the big issue in my administration, and even after I resigned, was, are we going to restart 27? Immediately, 27 reactors were stopped, and the big debate in the administration, even after I resigned, was, what are we going to do with restart of all the others?
3.11 前までのルールは、原子力安全保安院が判断すれば、それで、OK を出せる仕組みになってました。
Before 3.11, we had the Atomic Safety Commission, and all of these decisions were left up to solely that commission.
しかしこの原子力安全保安院は福島原発事故を止めることができなかったし、非常に不十分な組織だと私は考えてました。
But this NISA, nuclear Industry Safety Commission, is now criticized as inappropriate. It used to be an inappropriate group.
Can you restate that, please?
But now the nuclear NISA, it's the NISA, so it's the nuclear, has been criticized for all of these decisions because they're made in an insular environment and there is no transparency. And so he's connecting this to exactly the issue of transparency and the issues that we're talking about with the NRC, Edison, and regulatory issues.
事故の後、私が指示をして、再稼働する場合の条件を、そのハードルをかなり厳しいハードルを暫定的に決めました。
After 311, the whole issue of restart was the very first hurdle for him personally. It was the hardest hurdle to actually rethink his philosophy on nuclear because, as he mentioned before, everything had changed 180%. So this was the hurdle in his career.
一つはストレステストを行うということです。
The first and most important part was the stress test for these reactors. We need to figure out a way. How can we test them for stress?
もう一つは原子力安全委員会の了解も合わせて取るということです。
And as you're doing such tests on the reactors, the most important part is the connection to the Safety Commission and regulatory agencies, having an open dialogue and an open, transparent conduit and conversation.
もう一つは地元の自治体の OK を取るということです。
And thirdly, having local support and the conversation with the local people that are affected by these issues.
そしてその
Local municipalities, pardon me.
その上で関係する閣僚、総理を含む4人の閣僚が最終的に判断するというそういう暫定的なルールを作りました。
Okay. And finally, because of the first three points, we needed to create a 4-person commission to implement all of these issues so that there would be an open dialogue between.
それ以降、今日まで、そのハードルを超えたのは野田内閣の時の大井の2つの原発だけで、それ以外は現在すべて、止まっている状況です。
And because of the creation of opening this 4-armed commission and opening such a conversation, we have overcome the hurdle. And as a result, presently we only have Oi nuclear power plant as well as Monju reprocessing power plant. Only those two. Oh, not Monju. Oi and.
大井の原発。
Oi has 2 reactors. Pardon me.
で現在は原子力安全保安院を全部なくしまして新しい原子力規制委員会を作りました。
As a result, the old NISA that we were talking about, the old Safety Commission, has been abolished, and as a result of overcoming this hurdle, a new regulatory commission, Safety Commission, has been established. Nuclear Regulatory Authority is the English translation.
でこの新しい規制委員会が今年の7月に、新しい規制のルール、安全基準を決めることになっています。
And this year in April, we have the new rules that are coming from this Nuclear Regulatory Authority.
ですからこれから我が国でも再稼働を認めるかどうか、あるいは原発の新設を認めるかどうかはこの新しいルールに基づいてまずは規制委員会が技術的な点で判断するとそうなります。
And therefore, any questions that are regarding to restart or construction of any new nuclear power plants will have to go directly through the Nuclear Regulatory Authority, this new created entity.
すでにこの規制委員会はいくつかの原発については、活断層といった 断層がサイトの中にあるということで、再稼働の申請そのものに対して、審査をしないという、出されても審査をしないという姿勢を示しています。
So what's really, really important about the direction from now on is doing more research about the active faults. Many of these plants are placed on or near active faults, and so we need to do more testing, and this is going to become a critical element of the decision-making process for restart.
しかし、
There should be no nuclear plants obviously created there.
しかし昨年の12月の総選挙で、自民党の政権に、また変わった後は、安倍総理を含めて、再稼働をさせたいということで、この委員会に圧力をかけていると、そのように私には受け止めています。私はそういう圧力がかかっているように受け止めています。
Unfortunately, with December, the last election in Japan in December, we have a new administration, the Liberal Democratic Party that Abe Prime Minister is leading. He is putting exceptional pressure on this nuclear regulatory authority, and it's just it's a very, very unfortunate situation for me to watch, and that's where I am viewing this situation.
私も皆さんと同じようにこの圧力に対抗しなければならないと思っています。
And I join you in putting all pressure against this nuclear regulatory authority. I join you in solidarity with your efforts, what you're doing here. We're in the same boat.
Any other, please go ahead, Commissioner, the courageous Commissioner.
No, I wanted to comment. I think it was an interesting point that Peter raised, and it is one of those issues. I think that certainly looking back is, I would say, almost stunning. Is that we did not take any action at plants in the United States, and there was very much pressure on the NRC to treat this as a Japanese accident. And as a result, it was very, very difficult. I recall a few conversations where I tried to broach the topic of even just a halt on licensing actions. And there really was, within the commission, and a lot of it comes from the congressional pressure that Peter talked about, there was really not even a willingness to discuss a moratorium on licensing. And the number of B&W plants, perhaps weighs in favor of the action. The number of B&W plants in the United States is fewer than the number of Mark I BWRs in the United States. So perhaps it was that may have weighed in to some degree, but it is a fascinating fact to look back and see that we really took. There was no direct impact on any U.S. facility following the action, and there are plants likely, well, not likely, but I would say likely because I don't know for sure, but say after the bombing in Boston, most nuclear power plants in this country took additional security measures. That's standard process and protocol. Yet after the largest accident involving Western or U.S. essentially based technologies, there was not one single immediate action for any nuclear power plant in this country. It is one of those things that when you're in the middle of it, it's difficult to process to some extent what that means. But it is, I think, a very, very interesting fact that he brought up, and until he had said it, refreshed some memory of it. We did look at it and know the talk. Some of what the commissioners were telling me at the time was, well, what did the NRC do after Chernobyl? And that was what really people looked at. What did we do after Chernobyl? Because it was a plant in another country, but Chernobyl technology was very, very different technology from U.S. technology. You know, there wasn't as much thinking, well, what happened after 3 Mile Island? So I think it's a very interesting, and as I know Prime Minister Khan has talked about, the idea that has come out of other reports in Japan is this idea of the nuclear village, so a strong connection between the industry, the regulatory agencies, the government. And that connection exists in the United States to some degree, perhaps not to the extent in Japan, but it exists. So there are more parallels, I think, with the accident in Fukushima with the United States that initially I think people wanted to acknowledge. And so I hope as we go forward, people will continue to reinforce that.
Shut them down.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Gundersen. Any thoughts? How many of the different reactors do we have here in the U.S.? Because you predicted, or you said, that if there was going to be an accident, you could predict the likely areas. What do you see here?
The Mark I design was built by General Electric right up in San Jose, and it was designed by Ebasco in Manhattan. Then it was a turnkey project, which means that General Electric and Ebasco did fixed price projects. So Daiichi Unit 1 was all of the elevation, the 10-meter distance above the sea, the seismic criteria, all of that was determined not in Japan. It was an entirely American-designed system, largely in California, where I frequently was in San Jose back in the day. It's hard to put luck and Fukushima Daiichi in the same sentence. But the Japanese and the Western Hemisphere are extraordinarily lucky that the earthquake occurred at 2 o'clock in the afternoon instead of 2 o'clock at night. If the accident had happened 12 hours later, there would not have been 1,000 people at Daiichi to fight it, there would have been 100. And the people that were off-site could not have gotten into the site to help because the infrastructure had collapsed. We would likely have had 13 meltdowns and not 3. Of the plants along the Pacific, Daiichi, Daini, Kanagawa, and Tokai, there are 37 diesels. 24 failed because of the tsunami. So the tsunami didn't just affect Daiichi, it affected Daini, Kanagawa, and Tokai. When we can thank our lucky stars that there were enough people, enough brave people at those sites who stayed behind and fought, who fought a dragon they could not see for weeks to get these reactors under control. I believe the world owes them those several thousand people who stayed behind, and Prime Minister Khan for facing down Tokyo Electric. We owe those people a great debt of gratitude.